Hello everyone, it's Sam Ingram here from another Coffee Mornings. We have a very special guest here today, Billy McDonald, Head of Talent for Recruitment and Delivery Strategies for multiple SME startups in the tech kind of space. Welcome, Billy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. It's an interesting topic that we're going to be discussing, so something I'm quite passionate about.
That's why I wanted you on here, because the girls and I have been talking about different subjects that we wanted, and every time I speak with you, you've always got a book about AI or tech or something that's kind of happening.
Yeah,
so when we started thinking about this whole AI in the recruitment space and how things have changed, I thought, I've got to get Billy on the podcast.
I'm glad you thought of me.
I did. I literally thought number one on the list, and then it was like that was it.
Yeah.
No, so we're going to be talking about recruitment and the human element when it comes to AI and technology.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to talk a little bit through that. But before we get into that, just a bit of background on you, really, would be really nice for the listeners, just to understand kind of where you've come from and why you do what you do.
Yeah, I think, you and I met many years ago.
We did.
When we was agency, working in tech for banks. Since then, so I guess the last several years I've been working directly with consultancies, mostly tech-focused companies or tech-first companies, in building out engineering teams, from successful startups to big, large consultancies, fintech organizations, Capital One. And how the ecosystem across the recruitment process is changing over those years, especially over the last 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been quite something since ChatGPT landed on our laptop. So, again, thanks for having me.
That seems to be where it's quite a nice segue, actually. It's where it kind of kicked it off, this whole ChatGPT. If you weren't in any sort of tech space or knew about AI, that seems to be the one that everyone's now, you say ChatGPT, and then everyone seems to know what it is now.
Yeah. Well, I think if you work in technology or I guess in recruitment, then it's definitely at the tip of the tongue and hot topic at the moment. But even outside of that now, I've got friends that are teachers and work in all different kinds of industries, and it's all become quite open talking around ChatGPT and in pretty much every industry. So
yeah, it has. To my sins, I kept calling it ChatGPT.
GPT.
For ages, literally. And it was like, what the hell is ChatGPT? Yeah. And I was like, that thing. It's like, ChatGPT.
Well, to be fair, there's been such a vast amount of introduction of AI-focused companies, and they all finish with AI. So it's quite confusing when you're looking at all the tools around it that people have been putting together since it's dropped. So
it has, but we're starting to see it right in recruitment, and I know no one's really got that full answer of where this is going to go. So this conversation really is just our thoughts and ideas on what we think, right? Because we've seen it. I think it's been propelled hugely since COVID. I think COVID is the first kind of piece where I started to think that you're already speeding up processes by not having to meet people face to face. All right, it took like a global pandemic to kind of get there, but all the technology was already on your laptop in terms of your camera, Teams. I mean, everyone had Zoom, but no one used it. It was one of those, and then it comes along, share price goes bonkers, and now no one can live without it.
Actually, the UK sales director for Zoom when this happened, and his job was pretty easy.
Yeah, had to have been, wouldn't it? You'd imagine just being in that room, like. Absolutely phenomenal. But I feel that was it made it very easy for people, right, to then start looking at AI and thinking, okay, how can we automate, how can we speed things up quicker and quicker and quicker? Because that to me seems to be a good turning point. And when this whole kind of AI thing really started to come full circle, then it was like, right, the boundaries really are now limitless.
Yeah.
But have you seen it in action much, apart from when we talk about it? Have you seen many people actually going, I've used it like this and it's working really great?
Yeah, I think there's been a number of case studies that people have been experimenting with. There's no, I guess, kind of full circle life cycle recruitment process that's been completely changed from start to finish. But there's bits and pieces where people have introduced their certain way of working and a certain method of doing something, speeding it up. I think one of the things that I first mentioned, realised when I went from recruiting for an agency as opposed to working in an in-house team was the amount of administrative tasks there are to do, and those tedious tasks that no one really wants to do, and a lot of ChatGPT can help with so much of that, and speed those processes up. So Yeah, I think from my side of things, it's helped me a lot with lots of the kind of tedious tasks that will take up a lot of your time, as opposed to recruiting and speaking to people, which is the element that most recruiters enjoy.
Yeah, and that's been around for a little while, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely noticed it when I've been looking at how we do things as an agency. So much time is taken up by, you get an interview, client calls you, say you got an interview for a few people. How much time does it take to actually book it?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of think that could just be a click of a button stuff.
Yeah,
literally.
Absolutely.
And now we've got things like Calendly, like Zoom, like even bookings. I didn't even realize Microsoft had one. They got their own one.
Yeah.
And you can hook it into things. It's just literally like a link, isn't it? And it goes onto there. It's synced up to your. That's
mostly how I set up most of my initial calls with people now.
Yeah.
Here's a link. Drop
Book
in a time when's good for you.
And you can block it so it kind of suits you, right?
That's it. Yep. You can put your times in. It's so easy to use. I remember when I first went in house, there was whole teams of coordinators just to coordinate interviews.
Yeah.
And now it's so much easier. That's probably one person now.
Yeah. You've just made everyone obsolete there, basically.
And I think that's had a knock-on effect with regards to the technology space. It's been hard for the TA market at the moment. Companies aren't hiring talent acquisition people at the moment because they're not hiring in general. But at the same time, they've got all these new tools now where perhaps they're thinking about how they can, not need as many people to do that job.
Where can you automate it, right?
That's it.
You know what? The annoying thing about it all is they go, right, we'll save money by, you don't have to hire so many people, but then everything's subscription based, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I've definitely seen this where they kind of get you in and they go, sign you up for 12 months, all nice, and then just hike the price.
Yeah.
I've seen this happen a few times now already, where it's like you're almost indebted to it by that point because it is so embedded.
Yep.
And then you can't live without it. They can almost just dictate how much they're going to charge,
and
you're going to pay it.
Absolutely. And I've actually been involved in two kind of organisations that you kind of mentioned, where I've done a transition or a handover from subscription-based models to an in-house function, to having more control, and that's purely on both occasions was down to cost.
Yeah.
Where they've done exactly what you said. They've hiked the price after X amount of time and said, well, if you still want us, that's it.
Yeah, that is it. And I think this is where it gets quite interesting because we want to kind of figure out, there is a world for this. It's not going away. It's only going to enhance, isn't it, in the next kind of foreseeable future, at least kind of in our career lifetimes anyway, which is still a long time. Not retiring tomorrow yet. But it's still a place for people, right? Because the one thing it doesn't do, I think you kind of alluded to it already, is that you can automate and you can sequence and you can streamline.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you've seen it, but I always put on those messages when I'm coordinating anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to have a chat with me, let me know.
Always happy to jump on a call anytime. Here's my number.
And how much of that do you get as well?
Yeah. And of course, sometimes, just a message when it's just to confirm a time for the interview. If you've already spoken to them about the process, then, an email is all that's needed, or a message.
Yeah.
But yeah, just always having that human touch is so important. And you touched on it earlier as well, when throughout the COVID period, all the interviews I'm doing via video call, and that's still 90% of the case. Most companies that I've interacted with over the last year, still doing all their interviews via video. And I think that's something that's missing, the intuition that you get when you meet someone. I'm sure you've hired people that have perhaps interviewed really well and then not performed so great.
Yeah.
Talk a good game. And you can kind of get that intuition when you meet someone and you look them in the eye. And that's the element that's missing, I think. Yeah,
I think you're right, because that's where it does still fall down. I'm sure there'll be some clever thing that comes along at some point that's able to do that, but it still needs that human touch. It's still not tactile.
Yeah.
It could be factual. And I was listening to another podcast, I think it was a YouTube video, about particularly in the law scene, where, it is all just facts and how things are interpreted, right?
Yeah.
But they can get to a point where you've got one ChatGPT just fighting against another.
Yeah. There was a case, I think, where someone got off their parking ticket in America using purely
really?
ChatGPT.
No way.
As their kind of law resource. And that goes on to another point. I think the biggest thing is how you can learn so quickly and resourcefully with ChatGPT. It doesn't, if you're doing Google search for something, it doesn't take into everything that it's, every link or it's graded, right? Whatever they think is most important. Whereas if you ask ChatGPT, it will look at everything and then summarize it for you.
I've noticed that, like Googling stuff.
There's no bias.
No.
So whoever's paying the most money to get on the top of the Google search.
That seems to be what it is. If you Google anything, I find the most bizarre thing. You can Google anything and you probably find the first 2 pages, it's all the same content, just regurgitated in 20 different ways, right?
Yeah.
When you soon start getting to page 3, 4, 5, 6, it's so irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But like you say, ChatGPT and others like it have got this amazing idea that it's almost just picking data from everywhere and then just making it, you know,
it's just the speed as well, isn't it? The speed and efficiency. You don't have to click through pages to find whatever information you're looking for. It's just there.
And you can fine tune everything, can't you? The way you say things, the way you respond to messages and that kind of stuff. And even you can chuck in data sets into it now, can't you?
Yeah, you can chuck in a data set, and this is good for sourcing as well for candidates. If you've got hot lists that you've built and you want to compare them to 20 competitive companies that you want to recruit from, for instance, you can chuck in a data set and say, find me people similar to these that have worked at these companies, and boom, it's there.
I've tried that.
Yeah.
And it does work.
It does work.
Yeah. But you can put even like job specs and stuff in there.
Yeah.
Have you tried that? So I've done it before. You kind of put a whole job description in there.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, right, there's a file and it's got these other documents in here. Can you just give me like the top candidates based on this job spec in these? And it's not perfect.
But it's close.
But it's close, and it does throw out. You need to look for people like this, and the people in the data set are coming back with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And you think, oh Christ, it's close, and this is just the start.
Yeah, and I know people, and there's been cases where people perhaps are more technology agnostic than I am.
Okay, that's a good way of saying it.
They've gone to a next kind of level where they've asked for a summary of a job description.
Yeah.
And then got candidate CVs, perhaps a short list of candidates that they found, and said, based on this summary of this job description, how well do you think this candidate is suitable for this role?
Yeah.
Yes and no's, 5 bullet points for each. And then they've used that to make their selection process.
Wow.
Whereas I'd probably prefer to pick up the phone. But again, it depends on the volumes that you're working on, or how many jobs you need to work and so on. But again, it's another way that you could use ChatGPT as an effective kind of screening process.
Yeah, it is. It's going to grow, right? There's a stat that Devriti's kindly given us here. The demand for AI in recruitment is expected to grow. AI in recruitment market is projected to reach 1.5 billion by 2027.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to that number going, okay, so whatever kind of ATS systems and stuff are in play at the minute, that's got to be worth, I don't even know, that's got to be worth a certain amount, right? But to think that there's going to be this whole new wave and it's going to be AI centric to some degree, that's pretty huge to think like, but it's the what we're going to do without being too robotic about it. I think that's the bit you always come back to in my mind, is that it's wonderful doing all these things, but then what do you do?
Yeah, what were you going to do? Just
what's my job anymore?
Yeah,
clicking buttons.
That's it, and I think that's where you can be an added value now, be involved in your communities that you work in and the networking, that element, making sure you're going out to meet the people that are relevant in your market, going to the events, hosting the events. And it's a subliminal effect that you get from that when you're meeting candidates and that sort of thing, which you won't get. AI will never be able to deliver.
I don't think so, because I think it's whilst people still want community and culture and togetherness, you know, the idea of just kind of relying on a computer to do everything just doesn't seem...
Yeah, the authenticity goes out the window. I mean, I've seen a number of people that I follow or connected to on LinkedIn that never used to produce much content, shall we say.
Now they're wizards.
And now there's like 2 paragraphs every day, morning and night.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't talk like that. We've met. That's not you. Yeah, that's your ChatGPT is your middle name now.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, there's, you know, you can put some good content together, but I think it's just, I like to think it's AIA, so it's artificial intelligence assistant. So, you know, you need to kind of proofread everything yourself, make sure it's authentic to you and your culture, what you want to, how you want to be perceived to the market. It's so important. Because with Sora now, you can make videos, right? So you can do a day. A lot of things that I like to do when I go into a company is make sure that we're giving out the right culture. If we can do videos with the hiring managers about what's it like to work on your team, day in life, what's the good, what's the bad. Let's be honest, transparent.
Give us everything.
People don't want to just be sold the dream; they just want to know the truth. Whereas now you could probably, you know, put some text into Sora and say, okay, create a video where a hiring manager that's recruiting for so and so is really happy and really enthusiastic about his company, and they could create a video now. You wouldn't even have to do that. So it's scary what could be falsified them.
That's kind of where a lot of it, people are falling out with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you know, this
stop?
whole, yeah, because where does it stop? So now, okay, so we've got text, we've got a bot, you can have a conversation. And I think if you're kind of savvy enough, you can kind of always tell when you're talking to a bot, just by the way the replies is they're very systematic in the way it still works.
Are you a bot?
Oh, game's over.
They've caught me.
Yeah, but it does. But I suppose again, it's still like the beta, isn't it? Like we're still in this like infant stage of it, and the more we feed it, the more it's gonna progress and evolve. And this whole video thing is the scary part of it, because as humans, we're naturally look at digital media every day now. Everybody has a phone. Everyone has some sort of way of digesting information through graphics and videos, and you trust it. So imagine that. So if it gets to a point where you're doing, I don't know, booking an interview via Teams, or you're doing like a prep call with the recruiter, but you're not actually talking to the recruiter at all. It's a preloaded video bot. Where it's your face, it looks like you, sounds like you, has the same mannerisms as you, but it's not. It reminds me, what's that film? Total Recall. There's a scene in the film where the guy's like pre-recorded himself, right? Because he's lost his memory. But it's like a hologram, and he's talking, he's preloaded all the questions, and he gets to a point where he says, I don't know, because you haven't preloaded that question. So again,
it's repeating itself.
Yeah, but if you didn't have that bit in it, you wouldn't know. I think that's kind of where it could get to.
That's where generative comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of learning. Whatever you're kind of telling it, it's constantly learning, which is really scary in a way. And I think one of the books that I told you to read, I don't know if you have yet. Probably not.
Which one? Probably not. Which one?
Scary Smart by Mogul.
No,
I
haven't read it yet.
But yeah, I'm after reading that book, I always say kind of please and thank you to my ChatGPT.
Tell me about that book, because I'm quite interested. I forgot. We did have the conversation on it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think just get past chapter 5 is probably important, because it can be quite scary up until that.
Really?
It's you know, this is Mogul, that was the chief business officer for Google for 14 years.
Yeah.
So the innovation side of Google, super smart, really good, really good insights into AI, and he kind of spends his kind of life now going around the world trying to educate people on AI and how we need to treat it as a human species. And be nice, because it's sooner or later going to be more powerful. But look, that's probably a slightly different topic, a bit more extreme.
It is, but I suppose the idea is there, isn't it? Is that could go there. It's an interesting thing to think that it could be that powerful. But again, like how we kind of play our part is going to be the future. Because we had this similar sort of conversation before, where it's like, okay, let's say if it does take over, there's still 7-8 billion people on the planet. What do we all do? Like, there has to be jobs. It's got to be like, otherwise,
what do people do?
Yeah, otherwise you're just like that film Up. Is it Up? I'm sure it's Up.
Don't look up.
No, it's just the cartoon one, isn't it? Where they're all like in those like floating chairs. They just don't do anything.
Don't do anything. Yeah.
I've seen that.
No, and I think for the younger generation, it's going to be interesting to see how this spans out, because you don't have to think as much.
We don't,
unless you want to think more critically yourself, and you've got that, you've got that desire to. Then, but that. I think for the younger generation coming through, they don't need to at all. They can have it at their fingertips.
Yeah.
So it's how we tackle that will be interesting.
I'd like to see it in the future, if we kind of think about it in like a recruitment perspective, how it could actually enhance in the future. I think the one thing that it could do is it helps kind of speed up the process and things like that. I think we're agreed on that. But what we try to do, and it does take time, and it doesn't happen. I'm not blanketing everyone with this comment, but a lot of candidates don't do their sodding prep when it comes to like interviewing. And I still can't believe in this day and age, I've been doing this for 17 years, I've still got to tell someone, research the website before you speak to the manager. That's a good idea. You're like, wow.
A lot of things that we think should be kind of common sense
aren't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But wouldn't it be quite handy if there was like a tool where you had someone look at an interview and it almost done like a bit of a quiz to prep them for the interview forward, and it was intelligent enough to ask the right kind of questions and then guide the person to at least kind of prepare themselves ready for the interview.
I mean, this is the thing, right? So there's already an AI tool where you can it will change your eyes, so your eyes are looking at the camera as opposed to another screen. You've seen this, right?
Yeah.
So
you could be literally over here with your eyes.
People could be literally like googling every answer that they're being asked.
Yeah, and the eyes are still there.
And it doesn't look like they're looking down. Because I've had this feedback from hiring managers before where they've said to me he was googling everything I said. Like, you could tell, or just like kept on looking on the side for notes and stuff.
Yours is very tech and engineering heavy, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
you could do that, but yeah, that's a great one, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Literally, like, have you seen that one where the guy's got his laptop? He's actually on a beach or playing golf. He's got a green screen behind him.
Yeah. Oh wow. Brilliant.
He's got his big green screen, and he's got his laptop like on a little winch like in front of him, and he's playing golf. And he's on like a Teams call with his boss. Like,
Fantastic.
yeah,
That's fantastic. It's brilliant.
It's so good. But you know what? Here's a funny thing, and it is mainly, I suppose, it's more tech. If you get asked tech questions in general, historically, you had to have like the brain smarts to be able to answer, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
But like you just said, like, we're kind of living in a world where you don't have to. So why do you need that?
Like in your everyday life, you would probably use your resources that are available to you.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah. I did it for fun the other day. I asked Google just to create me a multicolored clock. Not Google, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's like create me a HTML like rainbow clock that's got this, that, and the other, and and boom, there it goes. Within like under a minute, it's built like a web page with a working digital analog clock, whatever you want. Yeah,
it's mad. You can create a whole apps with it.
Yeah.
And there's the people that are creating bots to speed up their process and so on. I think it depends on how much you want to use it within your process.
Yeah.
And I think it does come down to volumes and how many roles perhaps someone needs to work on for at a certain time. But you could use it for assessments. You could come up with a scorecard with your stakeholders, your clients, and say, okay, well, based on this scorecard, we'll put all of the recorded interviews onto ChatGPT or an AI data set, and they can say who's showcase more attribute with this skill, and make judgments on that. How far do you want to go?
That's a great one, because it's one thing that I've always believed is that when you kind of get into a hiring manager capacity, no one really teaches you that. No one really kind of gives you the right tools as a manager to go and hire. They almost kind of go, oh, you're really good at your job, you should be a manager. And then you're kind of flown into this.
Some people aren't.
And you're just not.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's just knowledge, isn't it? So what everyone does is they use their own experience as how they were managed to then, this is how I'm going to take it forward, because that's all I know.
Yeah.
But imagine that. Imagine if you had like a tool that was like worked alongside you ultimately, because if you think of any sort of technology, that's exactly what it should do. We shouldn't have this fear that it's going to take over. It should just work alongside. So you as a manager can go into an interview and you can make sure that you're not asking leading kind of questions. You could walk in before the interview and go, right, I need to get X, Y, and Z out of this candidate. On the soft skills side of things, about, I don't know, will they show compassion, enthusiasm for the role, etc., and it can actually give you guidelines of how to ask those kind of questions.
That's it, 100%. And there's so many times I've been asked by people in my industry on the internal TA space, have you got a template for being able to assess culture values? Okay, so what are your values? How can you put questions together that will assess those values, and then put a rating in between them? And it goes on time. So what we've done in the past is where there's only been kind of 4 or 5 people that do the cultural interview at a certain position within the business, and kind of record those interviews or shadow those interviews, and then kind of come up with what looks good and what looks bad, so we can put a scorecard of 1 to 5, and then other people can assess that when moving forward. But
so that's all data, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because this is all really what AI is, isn't it?
And that's what you could do. You could ask ChatGPT. Can you put several questions together, based for an interview, in order to assess someone's cultural fit with, I don't know, togetherness or collaboration,
innovation.
Whatever your values are.
Should we try it live? See what happens.
Or should we do a live demo? The demo gods, are they with us? I'll leave it to you, Sam.
All right, let's do it. We'll do a live one, because I've got it here.
I've used it before just to get some templates. That's what I use a lot. ChatGPT for a lot is building templates, whether it's an outreach message or follow-up message, and then customizing it, making sure it's still got my touch. But it will give you the kind of base of the content very quickly, as opposed to me overthinking something for 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to put, can you give me some examples to assess innovation in an interview at work? Can you give me some examples of how examples to examples on how to assess innovation in an interview, based on collaboration as at value. Let's see what it says. Is this the thing? It comes back like instantly.
So quick, yeah.
Assessing innovation in an interview, particularly when focusing on collaboration, is a key value. Involves asking questions that reveal how a candidate has contributed to innovation solutions through teamwork. It's going slow because it means it's really thinking about it.
Yeah, put it to the test.
Do you know what? I think that's a tell within ChatGPT. You notice that sometimes you can really go and it can whack out an answer super fast, but this is kind of going. It almost does what humans do, where it's like, let me just give you some filler for a minute whilst I really think about what I'm going to answer. Here we go, and it's finally doing it very slowly. Can you describe a time when you worked with a team to solve a difficult problem? I think that's quite an obvious one. What was the role in the process? It'll come through in a second. We can talk about it. But if you didn't know, that's a great go-to immediately, isn't it? And right now, you can look at those questions. Maybe you could even go one step further when you have the answers and then plug those answers back in after the interview then say, based on the answers, how relevant are they to our business?
Yeah.
All
you have to do is be word for word agreed on what your values are and what the meaning of those words are, and make sure that there's a lot, that syncs with educate your ChatGPT and what those values are, because it won't just go on Oxford Dictionary. It could have its own version of that word.
That's a good point. So if you're going to use things like that, you've got to be
very
pretty
specific, and cross-check your source and make sure it's in line with what you want.
So in theory, then, this is going a little bit off. It's not really going off topic. I suppose it's not. Like, you could almost code it, like very loosely use that word.
Yeah, you're constantly coding it with what you put in.
Yeah,
constantly.
So you could literally put down, these are my values, this is what it means to me, and use that as your kind of base code. Yeah. So everything that I ask you, I want you to base it on these values, and this is what they mean. And then ask the kind of questions beyond that. Yeah. And then give me examples of where you can use these questions in an interview.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And then you can go further than that, say, I want an answer that's more, go into more detail.
Yeah. You're still thinking about it, by the way.
Yeah, summarize. I've done one as well. I think it might be, might have an overload or something. I need some SREs.
Yeah, there we go.
OpenAI, hit me up. Your availability is slacking.
Yeah.
But yeah, several questions in order to assess someone's collaborative nature, including a scorecard. And usually this would come back to me within seconds, but
he's just thinking about it.
Yeah,
this is just the internet
loading.
Slow.
Maybe it's your Wi-Fi.
Dodgy Wi-Fi. Dodgy Wi-Fi. No, I like it because I think this kind of then goes into more the ethical concerns around this, because we kind of led to it, didn't we? Like, we're getting into a point where you don't even have to think about it. As long as you're able to code it, why do you need to think? You just let it rely on that. You still have to make the critical decision, I suppose, at the end of the day. Yeah. But you can be guided.
Understanding the reasoning behind what you're doing, why you're doing something. A lot of the time in interviews as well, you won't just want to know why someone's done something. It's why they've done it. Do they understand the reason why they're doing it and what the impact is, and do they care about that sort of thing? Like you touched on it. So for hiring managers, sometimes I'll go into a business and I'll make the mistake of thinking, well, my first contract when I went internal, I just assumed that hiring managers knew how to interview, and some never done it before. And I had a hiring manager, he's been told to hire, he's been promoted, and he was like, Billy, I've never interviewed someone in my life. Oh, okay. Let's go and sit down and we'll figure it out. So you need to give them that reassurance about why they're asking certain questions, so they can empathise with candidates and give them a reason as to why they're asking them, make them feel comfortable and so on. Whereas if someone was trying to learn off ChatGPT and they've never interviewed someone before, they could say, how can I interview someone that I'm looking to hire a Java developer? How can I interview someone and assess their Java skills or whatever you wanted to ask? And it necessarily, unless you said, and also explain why I would ask these questions, it wouldn't give you that.
No,
so
you'd say just ask these questions.
Yeah, you just need to the human touch behind it as well, which you can ask, but it's the thought process behind most people's mentality.
Because you know what, that's a very good point. Because, and again, this is a pitfall I find it within interview process, right? Is that they look at what they might need. If you don't get the right answer, you go, oh, you're not right for the job. You go, you just discounted every other skill that person's got based on one question.
Yeah.
It's not about the actual question. It's like you said, it's the rationale behind the question. And sometimes it's actually just really what they should be doing is just trying to evaluate where do you kind of lie in this spectrum of complexity in this job.
Yeah. So if you're assessing one skill, you've got to have 4 or 5 questions, right, to give a fair evaluation. Don't get me wrong, there will be red flags.
Which is fine. I don't do Java.
What's Java?
Yeah.
C++.
Yeah. Is that the coffee mug?
Yeah. But yeah, no, just making sure there's an equitable process, I think is what's important. But yeah, for me at the moment, I've not really used ChatGPT for assessing AI, for assessing candidates, but for sourcing and kind of templates and those tedious tasks. And like I say, being able to pull data from large data sets ourselves into ChatGPT, really, really useful and save so much time. That's the biggest thing.
It is time. And I think that's the way it should be used. In generally speaking, is to free you up doing the mundane things where technology can just do it for you more efficiently, quicker, and better. Let's face it, and they can worry about the grammar and the way it's kind of done a lot better than the average person can. Yeah. And you can focus on more critical projects.
Absolutely.
And that to me is where I see it going. I don't think it's this endless thing that is going to be like a takeover and it's going to give us we're going to have no value in the whole recruitment process. But I also believe if you're in a position where you are very administrative heavy, that's where you got to be careful. Yeah. I definitely think that if you're not kind of adding any human value at this point today, and it is all just behind a computer screen, that's when you got to worry, I think.
Yeah. And that, I think when you're assessing candidates, if you, like I said, what I touched on earlier, if you summarise a job description and put someone's CV into ChatGPT and said, do you think this candidate's good, without speaking to them, there's so much a CV can't tell you.
I hate CVs, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I always like the short, kind of sweet CVs, just bullet point what you've done.
Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. If you can't answer some very basic questions.
Yeah, that's it. And that's when the intuition comes in as well from the human touch.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially in the tech space, I think 80% of passive candidates, if they're in your process, are in like interviewing like 4 or 5 different places. Yeah. So you want to have that human touch as much as possible.
Yeah. Joe, that's
a value add as opposed to automated messages and responses.
Well, it is. We saw it the other day. We was working on interviews and the importance of like employer branding, particularly in 2024.
Yeah.
And the one thing that really came out of it, I think it was like 60% of all people who are applying for jobs have got 4 or 5 interviews on the go.
Yeah.
There's more candidates available. Yeah, fine. But still the quality good ones have a lot more kind of on the go still, and the passive ones definitely. So if you're kind of sitting there thinking, oh, well, AI just does everything, automate it, it's all there. Yeah. You got to be thinking about...
One of the things I've always loved about this job is when I'm speaking to a candidate, I always look at their hobbies at the bottom of the CV. And I have a chat with them about that. After I've kind of had a conversation, if we're getting on well. Yeah. And you have a kind of human conversation other than just the process and
just a common interest, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Unless they're a Tottenham fan, then
well, I don't know.
But you're right. That it's things like that you can pick out as a human, because then you have like something in common, or just an interest.
Yeah.
Even if there was a guy, I think I can't remember what it was he was into, but it was all like Taekwondo and like lots of different martial arts. I'm not a black belt in anything. Black belt recruitment.
Ninja. Recruitment ninja. Jedi.
But beyond that, like, and he can talk about that subject for ages, and there's an interest there, and you're building a relationship, aren't you?
Yeah.
And again, I don't think you get that a lot from bots and AI. I mean, maybe you will do one day, but I'd hate this kind of idea that you have to kind of go, AI could and do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, let's not think about it for a minute. Let's let it do what it needs to do, and then focus there on the actual human pieces. Like, you want to join here because we have something in common. Get rid of the technology for a minute. When you come to work with us, we are human still.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think we're at the tip of the iceberg at the moment. It's literally, now we're at this stage where it's generative. It's taken us like 60 years in AI to get to where we are now. But now we're here. It's just the curve's going to go like this. It's already happening, because essentially it's large data sets, and now those data sets are creating themselves.
Yep.
So it's just multiplying it tenfold, just constantly.
Yeah. Did I tell you about the? I don't think it was a Google R&D project. It might have been about the tin can and the robots.
No.
I told you about this one.
It's an analogy, is it?
No, it's a real thing.
Okay.
It's a real thing. So it's an R&D kind of tech company. I think it is in California, and they just basically had like a warehouse full of automated robots, and they had one simple task. There was a tin can that falls off a shelf, yay high, and the robot just needs to put it back on the shelf. That's all it needs to do. And they had like 100 robots. I think it was 100, and all programmed the same way. Had an arm, pick it up, put it on, and for weeks and weeks and weeks, none of these robots could do it. Like none.
Kept
dropping it, or they weren't finding it, or it was coming off the edge. They couldn't really figure out what was going on. But the way they coded it is generative. So the idea is that as soon as one started to kind of figure it out, the rest would
learn,
figure it out. And then one day, one of the robots literally picked it up off the floor, put it straight on the shelf, and instantly after, the other 99 did it.
Done it.
Immediately after.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the scary part comes.
Yeah.
Because whilst it's kind of in control, it's a bit cute, and it's like, oh, look at it trying to figure that out. As soon as it figures it out, the whole system figures it out. And
there's no way of kind of policing it or governing it. It's a worldwide issue, and there's no worldwide police on AI, right? So that's again another scary part. I don't like to say the word, but it generally is.
It generally is. I think if you have if you're using it for just to see where it goes, I think that's where it can be quite scary.
You can go into a rabbit hole.
Really. Completely. But I think for us, it's just about doubling down really on the human piece of it, which is using your own kind of intuition, your own kind of relationships with people.
That's what I loved about kind of when I was agency side, going out and meeting candidates.
I know,
that's the enjoyable bit. Right? All the other stuff is quite tedious and takes time. And I think getting your candidates, if you can, get them to come to the companies and meeting them. And I think because a company can portray what they look like and what their culture is on a video and everything else, but they're not going to go onto a video and be like, it's all right, It's very true, but if you go to an interview at a company, you get to see the office, you get to see the people that are walking in and out. Are they smiling? These are things that you pick up on. It's subliminal, and you do get a feel for whether or not a company is for you. And that will reflect on retention as well. Definitely.
It still has to be about the people at the end of the day, because why would you bother? Otherwise you just go for companies that are completely remote, don't need to worry about culture or any of that kind of lark. It can just come in, do a job, go.
And don't get me wrong, some people want that, and companies don't mind if that person does that. If they're, especially in the tech space, sometimes it's like, do you care if this person comes in and puts headphones on and listens to AC/DC, without generalising or nothing. But some people be like, it just needs to do this. We're happy. It doesn't need to.
And that's got its place, isn't it?
Sometimes that's right. But,
do you know what? One thing, it's kind of going slightly off, but I still think it's relevant, is when you get these organisations that want to template their kind of way of work on everybody in their organisation.
Yeah.
And I had it quite recently where there was as a company wants to do everyone remote, but they have an office, but they don't want people to use it.
Yeah.
And you got some people that want to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going, oh well, it's only really for like big meetings. It's only really for like the C-suite and the leaders to get together.
Yeah.
You think like, what's that all about? You don't not care about the culture, but you do at some kind of degree. So they're not including anyone. And I also see the other way around, where people have gone like, oh, we want everyone in 5 days a week.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Yeah.
Like,
I think companies need to start being more specific with the hybrid word, right, and be a bit more definitive about what they actually do.
Yeah. And actually, do you know what? Maybe AI can help in that sense, I suppose, around how you can distinguish personalities that better kind of working at home, what hybrid can mean, and use some tools there potentially.
Yeah, you could use ChatGPT if you was actively looking for a role, and pull in all the reviews on Glassdoor on a company, summarise these reviews. What's this company like?
Cool, yeah. That's a bit dangerous, isn't it?
There's so many ways you can use it.
Glassdoor's a bit of a funky one, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. It's one of those. It's like TripAdvisor. My other half, she loves to use that, but you'll always find someone that thinks one little tiny hair in the sink makes it a one-star hotel.
That's it. Yeah.
So yeah, I like to go by word of mouth. Again, human interaction.
It's the key. So basically, what we're saying is just be human.
In summary, be human.
Just be human,
That's it.
and then we'll be fine.
Just let it help you.
Yeah.
Don't stop don't be lazy.
No, don't be lazy. I think that use it where you can. I think that's going to be the value.
Yeah.
Use it where you can. And do you know what I think we kind of said it in a roundabout way. The future is going to be how you interpret it and how you use it. So the more specific, the more you understand it, the more you kind of be kind to it.
Yeah.
The better that relationship's going to be in the future. Because these jobs in 10 years time, 20 years time, they probably won't exist.
Yeah.
But there'll be some iteration of it where it'll be like, a job spec will be you need to be able to use this technology we've got.
Well, you get prompt engineers now, don't you? That's a thing.
Prompt engineers, exactly. Yeah.
Where they, do you know how to set up a prompt string for GPT in order to do this?
That doesn't surprise me at all. I'm surprised it's come that quick, but it doesn't surprise me because a lot of ChatGPT is how you use it. Like it's there, you can ask it some very quick questions like we've done, but the trick is in the detail.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think more than anything, the devil is in the detail. With what you put in is what you get out. Not just as a human, but with your AI as well.
Yeah, I'm going to start giving it some bit more love and see what I can do. Might just become a prompt engineer myself.
Mine's still loading. Mine's still not figured out my question.
Mine goes 7 in the end, but it does say what to look for actually. So look at this. We'll run through this very quickly. Describe a time where you work with a team to solve a difficult problem. I think that's a quite typical question. And it says what to look for: evidence the candidate's ability to engage in collaborative problem solving, their role in facilitating or contributing to innovative solutions, and how they supported or enhanced the team dynamic.
Okay.
So you've got the question, and this is what you're looking for. It's almost kind of what you said.
Gives you like what to look for.
Yeah.
But you could go into more detail on that as well. You could say, okay, and now level that in terms of 1 as being a rubbish answer and 5 being a good answer. Give me examples.
Okay.
You could do that, and I've seen it be used like that as well.
As a good answer, and
give me an example as a good answer. Give me an example as a bad.
A good question. See what it says. Oh, it's doing it slightly quicker.
Oh, it's working again now. It's back.
Oh, it's actually going to do it.
Mine was just having a nap, I think.
Oh, it's got level 1, poor answer. The response lacks any concrete examples or detail, does not demonstrate an understanding of collaboration or innovation, and shows an inability to work effectively in a team or contribute. I'm doing this as it's reading it, by the way. It's not me reading it like this. And into an interview process. And it goes, level 10, excellent answer. Let me give it a second. The response includes a specific detailed example that clearly demonstrates the candidate's role in a collaborative, innovative process. It's almost answering itself, though. You know what I mean? It shows an understanding of how to leverage diverse perspectives, overcome obstacles through teamwork, and contribute significantly to achieve an innovative outcome. Does it give you that much? I don't know. Again, you could probably keep working on it. I suppose the idea is that first question gave you like the first layer, and then probably to both the point really is, okay, then how would you put a criteria against it? What's good, what's bad? And you can probably even go one more time to go, right, based on that now answer, give me the next piece. So again, it's like try again really until you're kind of happy with that result. But it should give you quite a comprehensive answer by the end of it, because it's already learned what you've kind of inputted and how complex and the kind of parameters around it. You can
use data sets from previous people that have interviewed and their feedback, what was good, why were they hired, and then compare that with people that are interviewing as a kind of benchmarking process as well. That's
cool. Mate, I could go on and on with this one, really.
There's so much. And like I said, I think kind of case studies will start coming out, and I think it'd be more transparent across the industry about who's done what and how they've done it and how successful it's been, and data around that as well. But we're not quite there yet. People are still figuring out what works for them and what's good, what's bad. But we're on the right track. Hopefully everyone's just saying their please and thank yous.
I think that's ultimately it, isn't it? And I think that for anyone, they can just reflect on those kind of practices and how they can incorporate these new technologies whilst just kind of thinking about where the human bit can come in and play its best value. And you can rely on AI to give you that framework, or like you said,
the frameworks and the templates. That's really useful for as a recruiter when you're hands-on recruiting for a role.
Definitely. I think so. We didn't touch on it too much, but I think it also definitely helps with kind of like diversity and inclusion, and that's always a subject I find is
takes
funky.
Takes
the bias away, but equally, there's nothing wrong by looking at a data set and going, where are we typically finding a great kind of demographic of people that are great engineers or whatever it may be, that doesn't kind of fit our stereotypical, portfolio of people as it is at the minute, it can do wonderful things with that because it is just data. But I suppose you still got to collect it. So I think, again, this is the human part coming through. It's about thinking about what data you would like to collect, like what's important to you, and almost making sure that managers are kind of doing feedbacks, they are doing scorecards, and that data is great anyway. Like, why people don't do that more often is bonkers to me. Just write it down somewhere so you've got that feedback to come back on.
Absolutely.
But you can then take it one step further.
You don't even have to do it now either, especially if it's a video interview.
Yeah.
Otter. AI,
I was going to say Otter.
Just takes it up. You don't have to do it.
Verbatim.
That's it. And
so
just copy paste whatever you need to do, whatever tool you're using, whatever ATS.
Yeah.
I mean, ATS is now all getting their own built-in AI.
Yeah. I was going to say, is Otter the one that also kind of picks out the questions that you're asking as well? Is that the same one? There's one that you can, I think Otter just kind of does a transcript, doesn't it?
Yeah, transcript.
But there's one that is the same sort of thing as a transcript, but it can almost, it identifies when you're asking questions.
Oh, it can tell you to go into it like this.
Yeah, so you can, going away, like you chatting away, and I can say to you, all right, but how would you do that then? And it'll pick up that question, and then it will almost kind of like ring fence it, question, and then
it does do that. Yeah, it does. It's really good at summarising it.
Yeah,
as you go.
So there you go. So that's actually very inexpensive. It's got a free version as well, isn't it? I think
there's like is it Zoom? No, on Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
Which I was using recently for adaptivity. There's a tool on Teams where it can do the transcript, and it does similar, where it will pull out certain questions and then separate it. So it's not just verbatim. It actually separates the context.
So what we're kind of saying is, not only can you automate the whole kind of process of things, you don't have to worry about feedback because you can just run a bot on that basically. Yeah. So you've got all your kind of questions.
I used to just, as I was talking to the candidate, make my notes as I go along.
Yeah.
But you can get away with not doing that. I'm still doing it now, but you wouldn't have to necessarily.
No. Do you know what I like doing that? Because I think when I take my own notes, I remember it better.
Yeah.
Than when I say something.
Yeah, same. If I write it down visual, it kind of stays in the head.
I always think of it that way. But yeah, I think it's definitely.
But if you've got a team, for instance, that if you're doing a briefing call, and you're taking all these notes and so on, then you can have the actual word for word verbatim, and then add your bit to it. It's just all there, recorded, documented straight away. All the
data's there, isn't it? Mate, what a time to be alive.
Well, when we started out, it wasn't even LinkedIn.
No, I remember when LinkedIn almost got introduced. It was very early on, and just the idea that you didn't have to ring a certain bank and just be like, oh, I was about to say it then, ring like a certain bank and just go, oh, can you put me through to your fixed department?
Yeah.
Do you know what? This is funny. We used to ring through, right, and we'd go, what would you say? We're running a competition. And they're like, what? It's like, yeah, you're running a competition. You just give me everyone in your team. Like, give me all the names of the people in your team. Still the time.
Yeah, it works.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I just work in rewards. And literally just say, can you mind just jotting them down? And then you'd be like, the manager know you already knew. Brilliant. And you're like, I've got 4 people on my team, John, Fred, Bob, whatever. Yeah. And you go, sweet, lovely. And then you're
crazy now. You just got it, literally. I mean, not everyone's on LinkedIn, but most people are now. They are. Just there.
Yeah. It's all there. All the tech is in front of you. It's how you use it. That's the overwhelming piece. But that's another question for another day. Mate, that was brilliant. Thank you for coming in and having that chat.
I enjoyed it.
It was good. It was really good. I think hopefully people kind of got some good takeaways there from it. But I definitely feel that a lot of it is, like you said, it's all up and coming. So just embrace part of it for now. Yeah. And let's just see where this space takes us.
Just play around with it. See what works for you.
Just create some images. That's what I do. So it's fun. Let's do some videos. Wonderful. All right. Thank you. What's our next podcast that we're going to be doing?
This is going to be the 6th one. So there are a few pre-planned.
We've got some really cool stuff coming, haven't we? Basically.
I think we'd be able to do volume 2 of this soon.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll have to kind of do like we'll probably listen to this one again and go, God, we were so wrong.
Looking forward to listening to it back and then, where we could have gone into more or not.
Well, we'll know more then, won't we? Until that time, mate, thank you very much for coming in and thank you for everyone for listening. Oh, actually, one last thing. If anyone does want to kind of reach out to you for freelance or anything like that, how would they get hold of you?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the best. I've worked with startups from kind of pre-seed to to unicorns, enterprise companies, consultancies. So if you need to build out a team or need advice on how to do so, then yeah, drop me a line.
Billy's your man.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate you coming in.